All right. Thank you for listening to the Goalkeepers podcast. Here with always talking about mental health, mental well-being, certainly an important topic with goalkeepers, soccer players, athletes. So to discuss this today, we have Coach Brendan Roslund. I hope I said that correctly. Coach, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Art. My name is Brendan Roslund. I'm a goalkeeper through and through. I run goalkeeper.com, which is quite fun, and we're just trying to do right by the goalkeeping world there. So love that. Funny story. Last time I was playing on a competitive team, I was down in Costa Rica. I was working on a project down there, writing some children's books with a friend who he played at Louisville. He's a midfielder. He's a number 8, total opposite of a goalkeeper. He'll run all to every square inch of the field where I just want to stay right in front of the goal. So we went and tried out for a team, and after about an hour commute, we got to the pitch, and I realized I forgot my boots. So I trialed for this team and made the team barefoot. So that was quite fun. But yeah.
What gave you the confidence to try out barefoot? Like, because I mean, go ahead. Like, how barefoot?
Yeah, it wasn't I wasn't overly eager to do it, but I just figured, hey, I'm here, I might as well do it. And if I have the confidence to go trial barefoot, then I think I would at least win over some of the hearts and minds of the team. Additionally, they insisted we both do fitness tests. So I did a fitness test barefoot, and I one of the other goalkeepers, he I think tied me. So it was good there. And plus, I had been walking around barefoot quite a bit, so I had some pretty solid tissue on the bottom of my feet there.
Wow, wow, that's phenomenal. And you know what? There's sometimes life just happens, right? It just
Mhm.
and you just have to adapt and adjust and move on. And that's what this is about, because a lot of times we don't adjust, we don't you know move on. Sometimes that's a little bit harder for some people than other. But you have a pretty unique story about a particular day, where certain things happen on the field, off the field. So I'll let you tell the story, and yeah, share with us what happened.
Awesome. Thanks, Art. So it was after college. I didn't get drafted and to the MLS or have a lot of opportunities domestically. And there was a program which got in touch with me, which offered the chance to go be in England, have a UK visa, and study at the same time and earn a master's degree. So I did that, and during that time, I was with a team called Eccles Hill United, and we progressed very far in a competition called the West Riding Cup, which is a kind of version of the FA Cup, if you will, for the region of Yorkshire. And I believe that's the definition. If someone can correct me on what its actual definition is, that's fine. But made it to the final in the semis, saved the penalty, had a great and got an assist. Like that's basically a goalkeeper hat trick right there. Everything was great going in the final. Felt good. In the final, performed wonderful. Got man of the match. We're popping champagne bottles afterwards in the dressing room of the stadium. This was at Bradford City Stadium in the UK there, and it's funny, the coaches who were at Bradford City during that time are now the coaches at Wrexham, and so it's funny to watch them the on the series that's on FX right now, because after this game I got to go play with Bradford City quite a bit. It was this game, my performance in this game was everything that I had kind of angled and hoped for my career to be, to get in front of the right people and be seen. After the game, man of the match, I'm speaking with agents in private rooms. It's great. And I head back to my flat afterwards, And I'm telling my family everything that's going on, and they don't seem as excited or anything. And my mom sends me a single message. She's like, "Hey, we need to talk. Can you give me a call?" And so I Skype my mom, and she looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Your brother Gavin has terminal cancer." And so from that moment of kind of believing I had finally gotten onto the right path to achieve my kind of childhood dream, I find out that my brother, who's probably like I'd done my high school like kind of who's your hero project about my brother. He had already overcome some diseases earlier in his life and was just an inspiration for those around him. I find out that he's got ultra aggressive uh, skin cancer. And I mean, a couple Google searches in, and you look at these mortality tables that exist for these type of things, and uh, I was I was in tears. I cried so much I dehydrated myself. It was a crazy experience to go from that ultra high buzz of success in life down to having like a fundamental part of your family just kind of being told that's not going to be there anymore shortly. So it wasn't awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a step back a little bit. One of the first things that you said, or the beginning was, or early, was about getting to a point in your career that you wanted to get to. Like there was a certain point you wanted to get to, which was to be in front of certain people or the right people, have a certain performance. You had that performance. What was the buildup up to that like? Right? As far as just the training, the preparation, and again, right, we don't have to get into to details, uh, but I'm just wondering how did you control that excitement? How did you control that adrenaline, that rush of knowing how important that game was to you?
Um, that's an interesting one. I can say growing up, I was always a bit of a procrastinator because as a goalkeeper, you need that opportunity in front of you to act. And so by that point, like pressure had always just kind of become a friend. It makes things clear. And I used to have a coach who would tell me, "Hey, it's only football. Like everything else is extra." And so that was just fun. And I mean, growing up, I had been in and out of the national team system. There's probably there at one point there was an article that recounted an event of me being at a national team camp, just totally whiffing on a keeper sweeping attempt, and it's just it was just hey, that was the end of my time with them that year. But it's all good. Like I don't think a goalkeeper gets to a further part of their career without being very comfortable with yeah, like mistakes happen. So the pressure of that situation, it was, I mean, this was kind of following the Jay Demerit story and everything that happened there. So I was very hopeful that this was going to be my chance to be seen, to be recognized that, hey, this kid can actually play. He can actually play at this level because, in the States, I grew up as part of the Rapids Academy there and was fortunate to do that. And I can't lie. I was disappointed I didn't get, a chance to explore that further, but that's fine. So I just felt like comfortable in that space there leading up to the match.
You said something that stood out, which is procrastination and pressure became a friend. When we talk about procrastinating, leaving things to the last minute, pressure, there's always a negative connotation. Like you don't want to be that slacker. You don't want to be that person who leaves everything to the last minute. However, it is really important to recognize that people absolutely can not only do it, but they can like thrive in those situations. I don't want to say I'm one of them, but I can tell you that there's certain like deadlines I have to meet or certain deadlines that I have to work within. And a lot of times, right, I may have those 5 days to get something done, but because I'm so focused on like today and the now, I can figure out a way to get whatever that needs to get done by that fourth or fifth day, no problem.
Mhm.
And that is part of my makeup and part of what I can do. Not everybody can do that, but that's part of my makeup. But it's important to realize that yes, leaving everything to the last minute is not something that maybe we want to get into the habit of. But if it's a strength of ours, use it. Am I headed in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. Like pressure and constraints on a situation make what action you need to do very clear. Because otherwise, like it's easy to get lost for choice as far as, oh, I could do this right now, I could do that right now. Well, okay, all these things are happening now. I must go do this. So it's a can versus must thing there, and I had a moment where I was walking earlier this year and like trying to think about my personal mindset as far as now that I am in a workspace and I have staff that reports to me day in day out. They depend on me, and so how can I think about my mindset to change them? And I was okay. I can't have a true goalkeeper's mindset anymore because I actually need to go out and make the game rather than just wait and passively kind of like like we said before, be actively patient. I need to go out and be active in my efforts and make the game happen. And so, yeah, if procrastination and that kind of, I forget I watched a funny cartoon about this last night. The algorithms on social media know I laugh at procrastination jokes, so they were catching me up in that. But it's like you go into that mode of just like boom, get it done, and it's easier. And if that is a strength, lean into it, but also acknowledge that like the further you go off into that direction of reliance on that, the more you're going to pay for it.
No,
So
correct. It's definitely a double-edged sword, and I think it's just recognition, being conscious, and knowing, how close to get to the fire, right? And that you can only learn that with experience. But um, now, okay, so you have the game goes out very well. Things start to happen even before the game, and then you have the game, and now you are on top of the world. Then you get this news.
mhm.
When you receive the news, like I think you said, you googled what it was. You kind of sort of came to realization of what that disease meant. What was the rest of the day or night like, and what was the day after like?
Yeah. The rest of that night, right, I hung up with my mom, kept Googling, like looked up, just did like nearly made my fingers bleed trying to figure out, okay, is there any way I can help? You come to like a realization, and like something I read said, one hospital is focusing on treating this, other, and then because it had such stark survivability tables, and it was uh, I lived with some of my teammates at the time, and they were coming by my door trying to bring me drinks, bring me food, to say, "Are you ready? We're going out." Like it was a big deal, and we were going to go celebrate as some kind of ding dong young men do, you know. So trying to keep a straight face with my teammates there was nearly impossible. Like some of them saw me just bawling in tears, and I told a couple of them, and they were good enough to kind of spread the word. There was actually a good friend of mine, a goalkeeper. His name is Ryan Smith. I told him, and he kind of let the rest of the guys know to just give me some space. As I'm pretty sure I just cried myself to sleep that night, but the day after, I called my sister, my other brother, and then I think later that day I did call my brother who had the diagnosis. But I grew up as the youngest of four in a family of just like loving, crazy people. And my siblings have always been my primary part of my primary support system. And so reaching out to them was one thing. And then it was kind of just a rainy day in the UK after that. So, uh, yeah.
There's a grieving process. For the most part, there's a grieving process, and it's outlined, and depending on what you look at, it's either five or six or 10, up to like 9 or 10 things that tend to happen when we get some sort of news of that nature. Um, that doesn't mean we have to follow that pattern, right? That doesn't mean that that every single person goes through those stages the same way, right? We can jump stages, we can regress, we can stay in one spot for a long time. Um, but I think for me, when we get news like that, there's a feeling of helplessness, and then there's also a feeling of almost like blame, whether it's on ourselves or on something greater. But there's always, two or three things that we could rely on, which is obviously the feelings that we have, some sort of like blame, who are we going to blame? And then ultimately realizing that there's certain things that are without, like, that we have no control over. So once you figured out pretty much um, that you could only do so much. What did you do? What was your reaction? Did you go back? What was your process like regarding just being able to control what you could control?
Yeah. Um, so during that time, I was completing a master's dissertation, and I had uh, due to how the academic system worked over there around that dissertation, uh, one third of the grade was based upon um, the proposal, and I luckily already submitted a proposal, and I'd gotten very high marks on it, and to the point where I actually failed, truly failed my technically the master's dissertation part of that. But because I had done so well on the proposal, that saved me there. Um, and that was right. You can go back to the whole. I think it was a Adidas guy, like luck, where like opportunities where luck and preparation meet. Like yeah, like do the right work when you have the opportunity because it might save you later on. So there's a little nugget there, but I was still bouncing around to some different opportunities. So during that time, I actually got to go spend 2 weeks at Everton, and Tim Howard was there at the time, and that was awesome. And then I was with Bradford City training consistently, and I was loving it. And like it was to be there and see, hey, these are the guys I just watched play in the World Cup. Like these are the guys that are doing it for real, and knowing that like, hey, I'm here with them, if not like able to just keep going. And my family was good because one thing that like when people get sick, everyone wants to help them and try to care for them. And in my family, we try to feed people when they're not feeling well. And so my brother, of course, switched up his diet. And later on, we found that like we were trying to give him all this food, and like we couldn't because he had a very restrictive diet. But my family was they knew I had kind of touched that as far as hey, like I touched the goal. Now, if I could get something and keep going, that was kind of I had everyone's support in that, even my brothers. My brother was the first one to buy me a soccer ball, like because I kept trying to borrow his. And I think I scuffed it really bad, um, and so they shielded me from a lot of it in an attempt, but that kind of created um, a something I regret. Like if you ever find yourself in this where, like, right, there's a the number one rule is don't die, right? But then when you die, like try to admit and like recognize that like life is a beautiful thing that has happened. And so if you do find a situation where something is going to be fatal with somebody, like just acknowledge that and say, hey, this could go from 60 to zero like real quick. It's always can do that. And so um it I totally forgot the question you asked me because you're uncovering some emotional times for me, but you may have to remind me what the question was there.
I think you nailed it. I think you answered it. So the question was, knowing that there was all these, or recognizing or coming to the realization that there were certain things that were out of your control, out of your hand. What did you do that was in your control? And I think you answered it with that last bit, right? Um, and I don't want to botch what you just said at all. But what I heard was something along the lines of, when we have a moment like that, when we recognize, and when we're faced with something potentially that's fatal or ending, to recognize the speed of which things can happen, and then also just recognize the beauty of life. Just this is where we are right now, and this is, this is what we had.
Hmm.
um and I think part of all of this is to recognize how different we all are in our reactions, in our coping, in what those tools, those strategies look like. Because a lot of people, I would say, we could hand um, a manual to 100 people on feelings, habits, ritual, on all these wonderful things that we can do, but we're all going to interpret it in different ways. And I think that realizing that and normalizing the differences we all have, versus trying to, there's the step one, here's step two. Come on, you got to get a step two. Don't go to three. You got, no, don't go to four. You got to do two. And so normalizing the fact that we're all different and we can all move at different speeds, in those different processes. um, I think that will help us at least show more, a little bit more empathy towards each other, and just realizing those differences. Um, where are you now? Where are you now with this?
Absolutely. I think one thing I kind of to right off of what you were saying there is it's okay that it takes longer to put yourself together than it does to fall apart when you run into things in life and your career that don't go right. Um, like I kept playing, and I was with the team in Sweden, like right after I was during this event, and I actually did a tear in my hamstring, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I don't need to worry about playing right now. I can just go be with my family. But now I now I really kind of in my brother's memory just choose to invest in people and invest my time with people. I love watching that learning moment. Right? This is probably the most I've spoken about this in years, because it is a personal topic, and I thank you for kind of making me readdress
Thank
it
you.
here. That's healthy, but
I agree.
it it's never going to be as easy as you think it is. It's never going to be as hard as you think it is. Just like when stuff's good, it's never as good as you think it is. It's never as bad as you think it is. And so, right, with some of my best friends that I write these children's books with outside of the keeper's call. One thing we like to say to each other is keep it bouncy. As far as it's just like the bounce, the nature of change, the variety. I mean, imagine a world where you woke up and everything was the same every day. That doesn't sound great. So it's the nature of it that we have to deal with the variety and the change every day. And it's it's not something that can just be taught. I think a lot of times it has to be experienced. So like for the younger people listening, it's just be patient with yourself and putting yourself back together after everything, putting just your general development, because the like kind of the lessons, the biggest lessons are the ones that take the longest usually, or that hurt the most. And so we only lose if we don't learn anything, right? So that's how I'd kind of put a bow on that.
Yeah, the one thing that I think is important, I hope that kids, players, whoever's listening to this, take away from this is um, there is sometimes a sense of trying to live, or yeah, live in neutrality, right? Not getting too high, not getting too low.
Mm,
That doesn't mean you can't celebrate or that you can't grieve. That just means that you're there at your level, within your time. So there's no, when it comes to grieving, when it comes to stuff like that, there's really no time limit. There's no one way to do, to grieve or to process these emotions. We just do. So Brendan, thank you for coming on, sharing that with us. As certainly, I think that as goalkeepers, players, coaches, we can all relate to a situation like that, whether it's similar or different, but we can all kind of relate to the nature of the different emotions of on the field, off the field, the things that happen, that come of us so fast. And I love it, and I'm gonna steal it. Keep it bouncy. I love keep it
there you go.
bouncy. Keep it bouncy, because you never know what's coming next and where that ball's gonna bounce. So, Coach Brendan, I appreciate you. What was the name of the book and your website?
So I can only plug our goalkeeper stuff here. The other stuff's not quite ready yet, but our work is on goalkeeper.com.
Okay.
The children's book on there is free to download digitally. It's called The Keeper's Call. We also put out a weekly goalkeeper comic and a ton of content. It's only going to increase. I've got some really exciting stuff I hope to share later, but that's all in the works. So I'm not sure exactly, but I hope everyone here enjoys the World Cup and everything that comes with that. And yeah.
All right, Coach Brendan, let's keep it bouncy. Thank you very much for being here, and we appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Art.